This is a quick overview and tutorial for the Rolled Ink texture pack. So when you download the file, you want to unzip it first, and from that unzip, you'll see three different options depending on what kind of format you want to use. So there's landscape shown right here, as well as portrait and square. There's also a color examples, which is shown right here, that has 5 different options that you can use inside the main file here to give some different ideas for color looks that you want to achieve. These are just kind of some rough guidelines that I thought looked pretty good, but you can of course make up your own colors or modify and change these around as you see fit. And also included is a bonus logo templates file, which if you open up the Photoshop, there's 3 different logos inside of that you can go ahead and use. And all this type is live, and the links to these different fonts are included. These are from some different logo sets that I've offered in the past, but they're a free bonus inside of here. So how you use this set is actually pretty easy. Up at the very top of the file, there is a smart object that says double click to place artwork. You just want to double click on this, which will bring you up to this window right here where you can go ahead and copy and paste your artwork in, and you can of course just either turn off the visibility of this replace me layer by clicking on the eyeball, or you can click on the layer and then click on the garbage can icon to delete that. And some different ways you can bring the stuff in here is either copy paste, so Control C and Control V on a PC, or Command C, Command V on a Mac to paste your stuff in here. You can go to File and then Place Embedded, which will just bring up to a folder where you can place in a file of your choice that's inside that folder. You'll just have to navigate to that folder first. And another way you can do this is to open up that Logos Photoshop file or a Photoshop file of your choice. And then when you pick the thing you want to go ahead and add to this Smart Object window, you just right click on that layer or that folder full of layers or groups, whatever the case may be. And you want to go to either Duplicate Group or Duplicate Layer. And then you want to, under Document, you want to select the name of the Smart Object window that you've opened up. In my case, it's called layer11.psb. So I'm going to duplicate this into that file. So I went ahead and just did that. And now inside of here, we have this logo that I've included inside of this. I'm just going to hit OK on these little warnings right here. That shouldn't be an issue. I'm going to resize this very quickly so you can kind of see how this looks as I apply this into the Rolled Ink Texture AutoPress. The only thing you have to keep note of is do not remove this layer on the bottom that says do not remove. And your artwork must be black and white. If you use grayscale or colors, things might not look right. So make sure your artwork is black and white. It's best if you have a transparent background underneath your work, but if it has a pure white background, that'll also work. So all you have to do on this is hit Control S on a PC or Command S on a Mac to save this smart object. And once it finishes saving, you can go ahead and close this and then navigate your way back to the file. So as you can see, it brought it in right here very quickly and easily, and it has applied all the effects to it instantly. And then you can go ahead and customize this a little bit. So up at the very top here, there's a color fill that you can double click and then change this color to be whatever it is you want it to be. You can go ahead and experiment around here and kind of figure out what color you think works the best. And if you were wondering about the color file that I included as far as color examples go, they're labeled option 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 for the 5 different options. And then they're labeled by the name of the actual color fill label. So this one's called 1-artwork color. So if I go back to color examples, you can see this is 1-artwork color in this column. So you can either copy and paste the hex code or hit I on your keyboard to select that color with the eyedropper tool, and then just click on your fill right here to bring up the color picker window, and then copy and paste this hex code at the bottom here. Go back into the Rolled Ink Photoshop file that you had opened up, and then double click on that color, and then copy and paste the hex code right here, and just hit OK when you're done. That's if you want to use the pre-made options that I included in here. Inside the artwork folder, there's a couple different stroke textures, so you can either turn those off if you want the stroke to be completely solid. I'll zoom in a little bit closer here so you can see how these look. So keep an eye on the actual stroke here. So there's this texture right here, which as you can tell has a very pronounced effect when you apply it to the stroke, so the stroke is very heavily distressed. And then there's a secondary stroke texture right here. That's not quite as grungy, but it still does a nice job of adding some additional texture onto that stroke. And there's 2 different stroke types. There's the thick stroke opened up right here, as well as the thin stroke. So I'll turn off the thick stroke and then turn on the thin stroke very quickly, so you can see that went ahead and applied a smaller stroke. If you don't want any stroke applied, you can just turn off the visibility of this stroke folder by clicking on the eyeball icon next to it. Below that, we have the texture folder where there are 17 different textures to choose from. So you can turn on and off the visibility of these texture layers to very quickly add in a texture of your choice. So you can go through all these different 17 options and kind of figure out which texture looks the best to you. And you can of course turn on multiple layers of textures if you want to have a much more textured look, or just give yourself some more expandability in terms of how this looks. I've noticed that it behaves really nicely as you apply more and more of these different texture layers until you achieve the overall look that you're trying to go after. At the very bottom of this texture layer, there's a smart object that says Art Don't Remove. Just make sure you do not delete that. And below that, we just have a few more customization options. So we have number 2, which is the background main color. So it's this deeper blue in the background. So double click on that to change that to be whatever color it is you want that to be. Very quick and easy to go ahead and do that. And below that, inside here, we have the number 3, which is the background secondary color. So that is the lighter blue fill on top of this, but you can of course double click on that and change that color to be whatever it is you want it to be until you get to a color that you think looks pretty good. And also right below the number 2 background main color, there's a folder which if you open up, there's 5 different background textures to go in and choose. So you can turn these on and off until you find a background texture that looks the way you think will work the best for your given project. And this is the last of the 5 there. And you can also turn on multiple of these as well if you want to have a much more subdued effect as far as the background texture goes. But that's it for this tutorial. If you have any additional questions, you can either message me on Creative Market or leave a message on this YouTube video, and I'll do my best to get back to you and help you as quickly as I can. And thanks so much for your support. I hope you get a whole lot of use out of this.